Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another Read With Me session. I'm yours truly, Isabel Bedell, and I'm here to read with you. You know, this year has been great. Not only are we almost done with the year, but we've also read 2 books a month, each single month. So this entire year we've read 12 times 2 is 24 books. We're almost at the end. We are literally 2, 4, 6 minus 24. That is 19. 18 books. Okay. We're 18 books in. We have 6 more to go. We are currently reading in the financial freedom sector. The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John C. Maxwell. And for personal freedom, we're reading The Greatest Salesman by O.G. Mandino. And if you have not heard of O.G. Mandino, you have to go check out that playlist. Vanessa Black, my fiance, I should say, my future wife. She's actually reading that one. And it is off the chain. Them scrolls, just saying, they're off the chain. So make sure to go check out that playlist. It's going to be really, really awesome. Also, today we will be covering chapter 13, law number 13, the law of the picture. The law of the picture. People do what people see. And I'm not going to waste any time. We're going to get right into it. Several years ago, filmmaker Steven Spielberg and actor Tom Hanks produced a series of television shows on HBO called Band of Brothers, based on the book of the same name by historian Stephen Ambrose. The 10 episodes chronicled the story of Easy Company, a group of paratroopers from the 101st Airborne who fought during World War II. The men of the Easy Company were as tough as soldiers get, and they fought heroically from the invasion of Normandy to the end of the war. The story of Easy Company is a great study in leadership for the various sergeants, lieutenants, and captains who commanded the men, displayed many styles of leadership, both good and the bad. And when the leadership was good, it made a difference not only in the way the soldiers performed, but in the outcome of their battles and ultimately of the war. Here's the wrong picture, though. From the very first episode of the television series, the contrasting leadership styles were on display. Herbert Sobel, an Easy Company's commanding officer during his training, was shown to be a brutal and autocratic leader with a sadistic streak. He drove the men harder than the commander of any other company. He arbitrarily revoked passes and inflicted punishment. But judging from Ambrose's research, Sobel was even worse than he was depicted in the series. Sobel drove the men mercilessly, which was fine since he was preparing them for combat, but he didn't push himself the same way, being barely capable of passing the physical test required of paratroopers, nor did he display the high level of competence he demanded from everyone else. Ambrose writes about an incident during the training that he represents of Sobel's leadership. On one night exercise, Sobel, decided to teach his men a lesson. He and Sergeant Evans were sneaking through the company position to steal rifles from sleeping men. The mission was successful, and by daylight, Sobel and Evans had nearly 50 rifles. And with great fanfare, Evans called the company together, and Sobel began to tell the men what miserable soldiers they were. What Sobel didn't realize was that the men he was berating weren't his own. He had wandered into the wrong camp and stolen the rifles belonging to the Fox Company. Sobel didn't even realize his mistakes until the commander of Fox Company came up with the 45 of his men. The men who served under Sobel mocked him and undermined him. The time By the time Easy Company began preparations for the invasion of Normandy, many men were taking bets on which of them would shoot Sobel when they finally got into combat. Unfortunately, Sobel was removed from his position as company commander, reassigned before they went into combat. Here's another bad picture. Another officer's highly incompetent leadership was depicted in an episode called The Breaking Point. It recounted the Battle of the Bulge when the soldiers were preparing to take the town of Foy from the Germans. By then, the men of Easy Company were experienced veterans, and they were facing one of the most difficult times of the war. They suffered from bitter cold and merciless shelling by German artillery. During the time, an Easy Company platoon was commanded by Lieutenant Dyke, a leader with political connections but no previous combat experience. Dyke's method of leadership was to avoid his men, refuse them to make a decision, disappear for long periods of time to take a walk, and including when he was needed the most. Not one of the men respected him, and when Dyke was finally required to lead his men into an assault on the town, he failed miserably and was relieved of command. A different kind of picture. Fortunately, most of Easy Company's leaders were excellent, and one in particular was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross and was considered by the men to be the best combat leader in the World War II. The person was Dick Winters. He started out as a platoon officer leader in Easy Company during their training and was promoted to company commander after Normandy and then to battalion executive officer. He finished his military career with the rank of major. Time after time, Winters helped his men to perform at highest levels, and he always led from in front, setting the example and taking risks along with his men. Ambrose describes Winters' philosophy of leadership simply as officers go first. Whenever his troops needed to assault an enemy position, Winters was in front leading the charge. One of the most remarkable incidents demonstrating Winters' way of leading by example occurred soon after D-Day on the road to Carrington, a town that Easy Company needed to take from the Germans, and as the American paratroopers under his command approached the town, they became pinned down by German machine gun fire. Huddled in ditches on either side of the road, they wouldn't move forward when ordered to. Yet, if they didn't move, they would eventually be cut to pieces. Winters tried to rally them. He coaxed them, he kicked them, he ran from the one ditch to another as machine gun bullets flew by, and finally he jumped into the middle of the road, bullets glancing off the ground near him, and he shouted at the men to get moving. Everyone got up and moved forward as one. One they helped to take down, and more than 55 years later, Floyd Talbot, a sergeant at the time, wrote to Winters a comment about the incident. "I'll never forget seeing you in the middle of that road. You were my total inspiration," and all the boys felt the same. In 2006, Winters summed up his approach to leadership, saying, "I may not have the best combat commander, but I always strove to be. My men depended on me to carefully analyze every tactical situation and to maximize the resources that I had at my disposal and to think under pressure and then to lead them by personal example." When Ambrose was asked what allowed Easy Company to distinguish itself during the war to rise above its peers, Ambrose was clear in his response. They weren't all that much better than the other paratroopers or the Rangers or the Marines. They were one of the elite units in the war, but that made them special. Even among those who were already selected and special was their leadership. And the great CEOs, platoon leaders, and sergeants, not all elite units had such luck in their leaders. And that's the difference. Why did that make such a difference? Well, because people do what people see. People do what people see. People do what people see. This is the law of the picture. And when the leaders show the way with the right actions, their followers copy them and succeed. making the picture come alive. Great leaders always seem to embody two seemingly disparate qualities. They are both highly visionary and highly practical. Great leaders always seem to embody two qualities. They're visionary and they're highly practical. Their vision enables them to see beyond the immediate. They can envision what's coming and what must be done, and leaders possess an understanding of how. How mission provides purpose and answering the question why. Vision provides a picture, answering the question what, and strategy provides a plan, answering the question how. As author Hans Finzel observed, leaders are paid to be dreamers. Leaders are paid to be dreamers. I never heard that one before. The higher you go into leadership, the more your work is about the future. At the same time, leaders are practical enough to know that vision without action achieves nothing. Vision without action achieves nothing. They make themselves responsible for helping their followers to take action. And that can be difficult because followers are often cannot envision the future as the leader does, and they can't picture what's best for the team. They lose track of the big picture. Why? Well, because vision has a tendency to leak. Leaders are stewards of the vision. So what should they do to bridge the vision gap between them and their followers? The temptation for many leaders is to merely communicate about the vision. Don't get me wrong, communication is certainly important, and good leaders must communicate the vision clearly, creatively, and continually. The leader's effective communication of the vision makes the picture clear, but that is not enough. The leader must also live the vision. The leader must also live the vision. The leader's effective modeling of the vision makes the picture come alive. Good leaders are always conscious of the fact that they are setting the example and others are going to do what they do, for better or for worse. In general, the better the leader's actions, the better their people. And that's not to say that leaders have all the answers. Anyone who has led anything knows that. The leaders who make the greatest impact are often those who lead well in the midst of uncertainty. Andy Stanley, an excellent leader and communicator, has addressed the issue. A few years ago, at the Catalyst Conference for Leaders, he said, uncertainty is an indication of poor leadership. Uncertainty is not an indication of poor leadership. Rather, it indicates a need for leadership. The nature of leadership demands that there always be an element of uncertainty. The temptation is to think, if I were a good leader, I would know exactly what to do. Increased responsibility means dealing with more and more intangibles and therefore more complex uncertainty. Leaders can afford to be uncertain, but we cannot afford to be unclear. People will not follow fuzzy leadership. Leaders can afford to be uncertain, but we cannot afford to be unclear. That's strong. When times are tough, uncertainty is high and the chaos threatens to overwhelm everyone. Followers need a clear picture from the leaders the most, and that's when they need a leader who embraces the law of the picture. The living picture they see in their leader produces energy, passion, and motivation to keep going. Modeling insights for leaders. If you desire to be the best leader you can become, you must not neglect the law of picture. As you strive to improve as an example to your followers, remember these things. Followers are always watching what you do. If you are a parent, you have probably already realized that your children are always watching what you do. Say anything you want, but your children learn more from what they see than from anywhere else. As parents, Margaret and I realized this early. No matter what we taught our children, they insisted on behaving like us. How frustrating. Legendary UCLA basketball coach John Wooden quotes a poem that explains it perfectly. No written word nor spoken plea can teach our youth what they should be. nor all of the books on the shelves is what the teachers are themselves. Wow, that's a good one. Simple to the point. Just as children watch their parents and emulate their behavior, so do employees watching their bosses. If the bosses come in late, the employees feel that they can too. If the bosses cut corners, employees cut corners. People do what people see. Followers may doubt what their leaders say, but they usually believe what they do, and they imitate it. Former U.S. Army General and Secretary of State Colin Powell observed, "You can issue all the memos and give all the motivational speeches you want, but if the rest of the people in your organization don't see you putting in forth your best efforts every single day, they won't either." Whitley David asserted, "A good supervisor is a catalyst, not a drill sergeant." A good supervisor is a catalyst, not a drill sergeant. He creates an atmosphere where intelligent people are willing to follow him, and he doesn't command, he convinces. Nothing is more convincing than living out what you say you believe. Nothing is more convincing than living out what you say you believe. Number 2, it's easier to teach what's right than to do what's right. Writer Mark Twain quipped, "To do what is right is wonderful. To teach what is right is even more wonderful and much easier." Isn't that the truth? It's always easier to teach what's right than it is to do it. And that's one of the reasons why many parents and bosses say, "Do as I say, not as I do." One of my earliest challenges as a leader was to raise my living to the level of my teaching. And I can still remember the day that I decided that I would not teach anything I did not try to live out. That was a tough decision, but as a young leader, I learned to embrace the law of picture. Author Norman Vincent Peale stated, "Nothing is more confusing than people who give good advice but set a bad example." I would say nothing is more confusing than people who give good advice but set a bad example. I would say a related thought is also true. Nothing is more convincing than people who give good advice and set a good example. Recently, I received calls on the same day from 2 reporters, one from the Chicago Tribune and the other one was from USA Today, and it was about teaching ethics in the business arena. Both asked similar questions. They wanted to know if ethics could be taught, and my answer was yes. But many of the companies that teach ethics classes had ethics problems, one reporter pushed back, and that's because ethics can be instilled in others only if it's taught and modeled for them, I replied. Too many leaders are like bad travel agents. They send people to places they have never been, and instead, they should be more like tour guides, taking people places they have gone and sharing the wisdom of their own experiences. I love that example. That makes so much sense. John Wooden used to say to his players, "Show me what you can do, don't tell me what you can do." I believe followers have the same attitude towards their leaders. They want to see their leaders in action, doing their best, showing the way, and setting the example. And Featherstone remarked, "Leaders tell but never teach until they practice what they preach." Ooh, leaders tell but never teach until they practice what they preach. And that is the law of picture. Number 3, we should work on changing ourselves before trying to improve others. Leaders are responsible for the performance of their people. The buck stops with them. They accordingly monitor their people's progress, give them direction, and hold them accountable. And to improve the performance of the team, leaders must also act as change agents. However, a great danger to good leadership is the temptation to try to change others without first making changes to yourself. As a leader, the first person I need to lead is me. The first person that I should try to change is me. My standards of excellence should be higher for myself than those I set for others. And to remain a credible leader, I must always work first, hardest, and longest on changing myself first. This is neither easy, not natural, but it is so essential. And in all honesty, I am a lot like Lucy in the Peanuts comic strip, who tells Charlie Brown that he wants to change the world. When an overwhelmed Charlie Brown asks where he should start or where she would start, her response is always, I would start with you, Charlie Brown. I would start with you. Not long ago, I was teaching on the idea of the 360-degree leader. That is, a leader exerts his influence not just down with those he leads, but also up with his boss and across his colleagues. And during a Q&A session, an attendee asked, which is the most difficult, leading up, across, or down? And none of the above, I answered quickly. Leading myself is the toughest. To lead any way other than by example, we send a fuzzy picture of leadership to others. If we work on improving ourselves first and make that our primary mission, then others are more likely to follow. Number 4, the most valuable gift a leader can give is being a good example. A survey conducted by Opinion Research Corporations for Agilon Finance asked American workers to select the one trait that was most important for a person to lead them. Here are the rules. And he ranks them 1 through 6. 1 being leading by example at 26%. 2, strong ethics or morals at 19%. Number 3, knowledge of the business at 17%. Fairness, 14%. 5th, overall intelligence and competence at 13%. And 6, recognition of employees by 10%. Number 1 is leading by example. Nice. More than anything else, employees want leaders whose beliefs and actions line up. They want good models who lead from the front. Leadership is more caught than taught. How does one catch leadership? By watching good leaders in action. The majority of leaders emerge because the impact made on them by established leaders who model leadership and mentor them. When I think about my leadership journey, I feel that I have been fortunate to have had excellent leadership models from whom I have caught various aspects of leadership. I caught perseverance by watching my father's face and overcome adversity. I caught encouragement by looking at how Ken Blanchard valued people. I caught vision by seeing Bill Bright make his vision become reality. I continue to learn from good models, and I strive to set the right example for the people who follow me, my children and grandchildren, the employees of my companies, and the people who attend my conferences and read my books. Living what I teach is the most important thing that I do as a leader. As Nobel Peace Prize winner Albert Schweitzer observed, example is leadership. Following their leaders' examples. A story that illustrates the law of picture is that King David of ancient Israel. Just about everyone has heard the story of David and Goliath. When the armies of the Philistines faced off against King Saul and the people of Israel, Goliath, a large, powerful, professional warrior. Second. Couldn't see for a second. Laid out a challenge. He said he'd fight Israel's greatest companion in a winner-take-all battle, and who stepped forward to challenge not Saul, the mighty king, or even of his seasoned veterans. It was David, a lowly shepherd boy, who stood to face him using a sling. He hurled a rock at Goliath and knocked him out. Then he cut Goliath's head off with the warrior's own sword. We all identify with a story like that because we like to cheer for the underdog, but many people don't know the rest of the story. David grew up to be a warrior and eventually become king. Along the way, he raised up a group of warriors who were called his mighty men. No fewer than 5 of them also became giant killers, and just like their leader, the example set by David taught his followers how to become great warriors and even giant killers. Leadership in the face of terror. Leadership, by example, always has a powerful impact on followers. One of the leaders I admire is Rudy Giuliani, former mayor of New York City. During his career, first as an attorney working for the US government and then later as an elected official, Giuliani led by example. He says in his book Leadership that he is very aware that what he does sets the tone for those who follow him. You cannot ask those who work for you to do something you're unwilling to do yourself, he states. It is up to you to set a standard of behavior. Central to Giuliani's philosophy of leadership is the idea of accountability, Giuliani writes. And more than anyone else, leaders should welcome being accountable. Nothing builds confidence in a leader more than a willingness to take responsibility for what happens during his watch. One might add that nothing builds a stronger case for holding employees to a high standard than a boss who holds himself to even higher ones. And that is so true in any organization. Accountability was the basis of one of Giuliani's regular practices. The morning meeting he convened with his top staff every day at 8 o'clock. He had done it since 1981. It put him and his people on the same page every day. They had to give him answers, and he forced to make quick decisions. Nobody could hide. Everyone was accountable. Many people acknowledged Giuliani's ability as a mayor. Under his watch, crime in the city fell dramatically. New York returned to its former glory as a tourist destination, taxes decreased, and business thrived. But the event that really revealed Giuliani's leadership ability was, of course, 9/11. When the unthinkable occurred and the city was in chaos, the mayor was on the front lines, leading, keeping in close contact with the state and federal leaders, and directing the various phases of the city government. And when the worst part of the crisis was behind him, Giuliani was also leading by example. Not only was he an advocate of his city, opening the theaters, encouraging people to live their lives as close as normal as possible, and asking visitors to come to New York, but he also grieved with those who had lost loved ones. He estimates that in the wake of the terrorist attacks, there were 6 to 20 funerals every day. He made sure to attend at least 6 every day and to be sure that a representative from city government was in attendance at every service. Giuliani's examples of leadership, strength, and resilience inspired the nation. In many ways, people all over the United States learned how to conduct themselves in a post 9/11 world by watching Rudolph Giuliani's modeling. He was not going to let terrorists determine the way he would live. And that's what good leaders always do. They set the example. Giuliani sums up his leadership this way. All my life, I have been thinking about how to be a leader. Whether it was when I was running the corruption unit of the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of New York and the narcotics unit, or turning around a bankrupt Kentucky coal company after being appointed as a receiver, or watching Ronald Reagan, Judge McCone, and others, I realized later that much of what I was doing in studying these people so closely was preparing unconsciously. I was learning how to run things. And in other words, he was simply done. He has simply done what he said, what he had seen his leaders do throughout his career, and he practiced the law of picture. Yeah, this is a good one. Here's applying the law of picture to your life. If you are already practicing the law of practice, then you are currently working to sharpen your skills to increase your leadership ability. And if you're not, get started. But there is more to leadership than the technical skills, and character is also vital to leadership. And that is communicated through the law of picture. The primary example you set for your followers comes in the area of character, and that is the area that you need to address first before trying to change others. Give yourself a character audit. First, make a list of your core values such as integrity, hard work, honesty, and so on. Then think about your actions of the last month. What incidents, if any, stand out as inconsistent with those values? List as many things as you can recall. Don't dismiss anything too quickly and don't rationalize any of them. Think these items will show you where you need to work on yourself. Work on changing not only your actions, but also your attitude. Ask a trusted friend or colleague to watch you for an extended period of time, at least a week. Compare what you teach with how you conduct yourself. Ask yourself or her to record any inconsistencies. Then plan to meet at the end of the observation period to review the results. And at that meeting, you may ask questions for clarification, but you are not allowed to defend yourself. Plan to change either your actions or your philosophies to make them consistent with one another. Lastly, what are the 3 to 5 things you wish your people did better than they are currently doing now? List them. Now grade your performance for each. You want to ask someone else to grade you as well, and to make sure that your perception of yourself is accurate. If your self scores are low, then you need to change your behavior. If your scores are high, then you need to make your example more visible to your people. Adjust accordingly. That's definitely an exercise I will be doing. That's awesome. I hope you got a lot out of the law of picture. I know I did. It's getting late over here, but I wanted to make sure to get this in. I wanted to make sure to, share with you that it's not just like, I love this because everyone talks about, like, I was thinking about this. I've been thinking about this for a while now. Like, people say, oh, I read 10 books a month or whatever, 10 books a year. And I've read this book and that book and all that stuff. And then I'm like, did you really though? At least some people are honest and then they're like, I just skim through it and I just highlight whatever sticks out. And, I read the Audible or I listen to the Audible and that's it. At least that's honest, that's pretty average and poor behavior. Yes. But then I look at what I'm trying to evoke here with my activity, showing up, reading these books, even when it's like, I don't want to. It's the activity, it's the actual habits that are being created. It's the learneth, if I expect my kid in the future to read at least 30 minutes a day, whether that's 15 to 20 pages a day or whatever it is, right? How in the world am I gonna not be like, do it, after me doing it for years, I'm proud of this new habit that I'm creating, because that's something that I'm definitely going to be leveraging in the future, as far as guiding my kids in the right direction, or at least holding our staff accountable. We're reading this book, a chapter at the end of each meeting, we read this book. And then next month we're going to do another one and so forth. But just think about it. If you're putting in the work for something and then you expect someone else to do it, what makes you think that they're going to do it if you haven't done it? So I'm definitely going to list out the things that I know there are certain things that I wouldn't do. And I ask people to do it for me. But then I know when I'm doing it. I know that when I'm saying and go to the gym as soon as you wake up in the morning, and then get it in, and then you're able to, I'm not waking up in the morning and going straight to the gym, but I should. Anywho, that is my rant for the day. I hope you've had an amazing, amazing day, and I hope that you're moving towards your goals, your dreams, your aspirations, and you're getting a lot out of this book, because it's not every day, and it's not every day that we have the opportunity to just like invest and feed ourselves with the correct information. There's a lot of unlearning that we have to do. And I'm grateful that we have this time together to actually do it. So I send you lots and lots of love. I send you a lot of wisdom, and I send you a lot of picture and to-dos, and a lot of courage to do the things that you know that you're supposed to be doing, so you can hold others accountable and they believe in you as a leader. Okay. So have a beautiful day. Talk to you soon. Ciao.